I am Wen Yang, son of Wen Ji. Face me!
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Nightowl channel. Welcome back to the series where we're counting down the top Dynasty Warriors characters as of the latest game. Coming in at number 17, we have Wen Yang. Wen Yang is Wen Qin's second son, and after his father's failed revolt and subsequent death, he joined Jin. During the Western Jin Dynasty, Wen Yang was famed for his success against the Xianbei tribes, and roaming to the Three Kingdoms makes him an expert Biangan user and compares his skills to Zhao Yun. Before we jump into how Wen Yang has managed to climb his way all the way up here to number 17, let's take a look at the popularity poll to see why Wen Yang impressively breaks the top 20 at number 17. In the first popularity poll, Wen Yang receives 1,185 votes out of a total of over 75,000 votes, putting him at the 23rd spot. In the second popularity poll, he's going to drop down to the 37th position, and then in my personal ranking, he's going to jump back up to the 13th position. So for me personally, Wen Yang is one of my favorite characters in the Jin Dynasty. He's actually my number one highest ranked Jin character that I have for me personally as of the list that I've made a few years ago, and that's just because when Wen Yang was introduced, he was just an extremely cool looking character, and his weapon style that he used in the game that he was introduced was really fun to play as. I can't complain about the way Wen Yang looked or how he sounded or how he fought or the principles that he stood for, the morals, the righteousness, the justice. He's a character that's very similar to other characters that I like Ma Chao and Zhao Yun, so it was very easy for me to become drawn to this character and wanting to play him. Before we jump into how he's changed from Dynasty Warriors 8 to Dynasty Warriors 9, let's talk a little bit more about Wen Yang for people who don't know. So like I said, Wen Yang was a military officer of the Jin Dynasty of China, and he previously served in the state of Sawei during the Three Kingdoms period. In 255, he participated in a rebellion in Shouchun started by his father. However, the rebellion was suppressed, and Wen Qin and his family were forced to defect to eastern Wu. Later on, another rebellion would break out in Shouchun, where Wen Qin and his sons would lead troops from Wu to help support the rebel leader Zhuge Dan. However, when the odds were against him, Zhuge Dan became increasingly suspicious of Wen Qin and eventually executed him. Wen Yang and his younger brother Wen Hu escaped from Shouchun and surrendered to the Wei regent Sima Zhao and assisted him in suppressing the revolt. After that, Wen Yang would go on to continue serving the Jin Dynasty, and he achieved fame for leading a successful military campaign against the Xianbei forces in northern China. And then a little while later, he was falsely accused of plotting a rebellion with Yang Jun and was arrested and executed along with his family. So a lot of Wen Yang's information and the things that he really gets known for happens after the events in, Dynasty Warriors comes to an end. And of course, reading about his unfortunate end to his story and of course his life, it's very unfortunate that a lot of the people in the Jin Dynasty were just killed off of false accusations, and which kind of sucks to see. But Wen Yang within the Dynasty Warriors series was a really interesting character, like I already mentioned. His personality was really cool. Of course, being armored from head to toe with, really cool looking armor, and then, the weapon style he was given, everything like that. Really cool character, and I really enjoyed playing with him. Not a lot of information for Wen Yang. He's got a few important battles within the game, and then that's pretty much it for his story. In Dynasty Warriors 9, his story is extremely short. I believe he only has like 2 battles, and then that's pretty much it for Wen Yang. Like I said, a lot of his information, a lot of the things that he gained fame from was from his success against this group called the Xianbei in northern China after the fall of Shu and the Jin Dynasty became a whole. But with that being said, we don't have a lot to cover here, but we're going to go ahead and jump into how Wen Yang has changed within the Dynasty Warriors series. We're going to start off with his appearance, and his appearance within both the games is really good. There is a little bit of changes between the 8th and the 9th game, but it's pretty good. Like, I can't complain at all. He's dressed from head to toe in armor, and the only difference is like the color. Like, there's more gold, I believe, on him in Dynasty Warriors 9, and in Dynasty Warriors 8, it's less of, a gold kind of like royal outfit. It's more of like a knight or like general-esque type look, and I think he looks really cool. He's got this like heroic figure kind of look, and you know, he was kind of almost made to look kind of like Zhao Yun. Zhao Yun's also coated almost in armor from head to toe. So I can see people who are fans of Zhao Yun being fans of Wen Yang because of their similarity and the comparison that's made between the two generals. And like I said, it's really hard for me to not like the character. Wen Yang, you know, while serving under his father, was very conflicted on the beliefs of both his father and his own. He believed more in righteousness over his own personal gain, and he didn't really necessarily like needless fighting, and when he fought, it was to make sure that the battle was ended quickly. But I can't complain really at all about Wen Yang's appearance. I think it looks really, really good. And with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about his weapon style. So in the first game, he's playable. Wen Yang gets the javelin, and at first I was pretty skeptical to play with the javelin because it's like not really your traditional, like, you know, Dynasty Warriors or just warrior weapon in general. But I actually had a lot of fun with the javelin back in the day when I first picked up the game and played through Wen Yang and just wanted to see what he was about. The javelin's really, really fun. It has a lot of oomph to its attack, if that makes sense. So the javelin was very like explosive, and not in terms of like, you know, bombs and like fire and stuff, but like when he threw it and when, you know, the effects of the javelin came out, it was a very booming kind of effect. The aura around the weapon when it was thrown, or the attacks that he was doing, whether it was his EX attacks or his Musou attacks, it had that aura and that like energy around it where it just did like a subsequent AoE damage around the weapon when he threw it on the ground, or whatever it is he was doing. The javelin weapon was actually a pretty fun weapon style to use, and I hope to go back to it for him at some point in the game. And like I mentioned, the Musou attacks were okay. Can't complain too much about it. In Dynasty Warriors 9, he gets a different weapon called the Long Tao Daja Dao. I really hope I said that right, but basically what the weapon is like, it's kind of like the blade of a glaive that's stretched out, and he can hold it with two hands. So the weapon itself is kind of interesting. It definitely got an interesting look and very unique. I particularly don't favor it. I'd rather, you know, just give that weapon to like Zhou Song or, you know, another character they want to give it to. But I personally like Wen Yang with his javelin style. I just thought it fit him a lot more. And again, the Musou attacks for both the games was a little bit different. Like the javelin ones were pretty cool. I mean, I can't complain about him too much. It wasn't anything too flashy or too fancy, but it was good enough for the javelin style. And then the ones with his other weapon, the Daja Dao, it was just fine. It was a little different from the javelin. They did incorporate a little bit of his moveset from the javelin into this new weapon, but again, I prefer the javelin over the other weapon. Now moving on to his voice acting, can't really complain too much about Wen Yang's voice acting. I guess I could say that Dynasty Warriors 8 was a little bit better than Dynasty Warriors 9.
If they stand against us, we must fight them.
But the one for Dynasty Warriors 9 was just fine too.
Yes. If the enemy is using its mobility to confuse our larger force, we'll face them with smaller numbers and stronger fighters.
I mean, the character didn't really have that much of a change to where it stood out that much, but the voice actor did a really good job, really displays that righteousness, the justice, the heroic, that kind of character that Wen Yang was really built to be. I thought it fit him really well, and his voice acting wouldn't deter me from wanting to play him. Now moving on to his significant battles, his relationships, and his death. We're going to start off with his significant battles. He's only got a couple, and that's going to be the battle, or the rebellion, Quan Chu Jian's and Wen Qin's rebellion, and then Zhuge Dan's rebellion, and then I guess you could also say the Battle of Chengdu. So the Battle of Chengdu we're going to cover first because he plays less of a role, but he is there, he is a part of it, and he doesn't play a significant role in the terms of that battle, but he is there helping to take down Shu and of course break into Three Kingdoms period. And then moving on to the two rebellions that I already mentioned. So the Guanchu Jian and Wen Qin rebellion was when Wen Qin was, you know, rebelling against Wei, and Wen Yang was, you know, unfortunately part of that because that's his father. He's going to follow him to where he goes, and unfortunately because of that he ends up going against Wei during that rebellion. The rebellion fails, Guanchu Jian gets killed, Wen Qin retreats, and then Zhuge Dan a little later starts his own rebellion. So Wen Yang and his father return to help Zhuge Dan. Zhuge Dan and his father have a disagreement, and Zhuge Dan ends up killing him. So Wen Yang and his younger brother flee to Sima Zhao, who takes them in, and then they end up taking down Zhuge Dan. Within history, I believe Wen Yang and Wen Hu were treated well because Sima Zhao wanted to use their surrender to entice other people within Zhuge Dan's like forces to also come and surrender and join Sima Zhao's forces. But yeah, after that battle, he ends up joining Sima Zhao in the Jin Kingdom, and from that point on, he would serve them up until his death. So I guess we'll quickly talk about his death, and then one other like significant event outside of the Dynasty Warriors games for Wen Yang. So like I mentioned, the Xianbei tribes of the northern part of China, Wen Yang was famed for taking them down. And apparently this is where the comparison to Zhao Yun came in, because he had a similar vibe of charging into the battle and like quickly taking down officers, coming out and then going back in. This feat for Wen Yang was very similar to Zhao Yun at the Battle of Changban. So that's where that comparison for Wen Yang and Zhao Yun comes in. It's a pretty notable comparison to be compared to someone like that. So very impressive to see that comparison to Zhao Yun. I actually didn't really know that was a thing until one, his ending in Dynasty Wars 9, and then of course looking up the information for Wen Yang. And then finally his death, like I said, it was an unfortunate end to Wen Yang. The game's not gonna go over it because it happens a long time after, you know, the game's cut off and everything. But apparently Zhuge Dan's maternal grandson, Sima Yao, bore a grudge against Wen Yang for the downfall of Zhuge Dan. So he falsely accused Wen Yang of plotting a rebellion with Yang Jun, who was somebody who was already ousted from power. So Wen Yang was arrested and executed along with his family. It's kind of crazy how he ends up dying. I guess there was no like judicial system or like a way for him to be like, yo, this is not true, or hey, these aren't real allegations. He's just making this stuff up. But apparently whatever Sima Yao did to, you know, accuse Wen Yang was enough for him to be arrested and executed with pretty much no question. Now moving on to his last segment, we have his relationships, and he really only has like two main relationships within the game. That's going to be with Sima Zhao and kind of Deng Ai. I mean, you can kind of say Zhang Hui a little bit, but not really. They didn't really converse at all. But the relationship with Sima Zhao is going to be his most significant one. He's the reason that he joins Jin in the first place within the game. Sima Zhao is the one that's telling him, hey, we're not going to execute you for surrendering to us. You're going to be treated well. Let us know the information that you have on your father and what's going on, and with Zhuge Dan's rebellion, and him surrendering to Sima Zhao and assisting them with taking down Zhuge Dan's rebellion earned Sima Zhao's trust, and they had a close relationship from that point on. And then his relationship with Deng Ai was also kind of short-lived because, well, one, Deng Ai gets killed pretty soon after the Battle of Chengdu, again, due to false allegations. But before that happens, they kind of build a relationship together. I believe Deng Ai actually mentions within the game when they first go against Wen Yang and they retreat. I think Deng Ai is the one who mentions like, hey, Wen Qin's son Wen Yang was quite impressive when I fought against him. But I'm assuming they had a mutual friendship and understanding for each other. They have a few cutscenes together. You know, of course, when Wen Yang joins, he gets sent off with Deng Ai and Zhang Hui to the western side of China to help repel the Shu forces and then eventually take them down at the Battle of Chengdu. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for Wen Yang here. Not a lot of information for the character. A lot of his big feats and everything comes after the defeat of Shu in the Battle of Chengdu. But he was a pretty cool character. I really hope they expand on his story or just give him more to do in the next game, because I really like the character. I'm sure other people really like him. And because of that similarity he has with Zhao Yun, it's very easy to like that character, not only in terms of looks, but, you know, when he had the javelin, he had a similar style in terms of fighting. And then, of course, the personality, the righteousness, the doing the right thing, the morality, the justice. I've always leaned towards those type of characters, and I thought they were always kind of cool. So for me, he's the complete package of a cool character, and he's going to probably be the #1 Jin character for me for a long time unless something changes drastically with the character. But that's all I have for Wen Yang here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, definitely appreciate a like, comment, subscribe. If I missed anything about the character, feel free to let me know down below. But yeah, that's all I have, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah.